early summer morning, the beauty of a wetland is hard to deny. For many, their mere mention conjures up ugly images of swamps and marshy bogs. But to people who know them best, wetlands are one of our most valuable assets.
Now we're moving into the wetland fringe here.
Bob Quinn has spent a lot of time trekking around the nooks and crannies of eastern Washington.
We've got some reed canary grass, red top here, and these are wetland edge type grasses.
You could say he's never met a wetland he didn't like.
And it has a wonderful name. It's called muck.
And he's met quite a few.
And it feels like wet tissue paper, like good old gooey, you know, greasy, and it has so getting the soil identification is very textural. You know, you have to get a feel for it. You got to be willing to get out there and get your hands wet and your hands all mucky.
Before Quinn began a state-funded field inventory, the Department of Ecology estimated Washington State had about 3,000 wetlands. Quinn and his colleagues found 12,000 in Spokane County alone.
We have an amazing number of these spring, seep, little stream systems that come and go, and around them you just get this oasis of habitat.
Wetlands in the past have gone largely unnoticed and largely unprotected.
The traditional view probably has been a result of society's view over a long period of time that wetlands were an obnoxious place that we wanted to drain and get rid of the mosquitoes and put into productive use.
According to the Department of Ecology, over the last 50 years, we've lost more than half of the wetlands in the country and in the state. And it's no wonder. Up until very recently, it was our government's policy to encourage, even subsidize the drainage and removal of what was then considered a nuisance. But now that's changing. Now, science tells us, even the homelier ones do a lot for our environment. They work as ecological filters of storm overflow and pollution. And they are home to thousands of species of wildlife.
And we look out around us, and it's hard to believe that we're literally, you know, a quarter of a mile from downtown Spokane. We're in this wonderfully diverse wetland. There were hummingbirds dancing around when I was coming down the slope.
Wetlands aren't always obvious. The easiest way to recognize one is the presence of water. But short of that, a wetland is determined by the abundance of water-loving plants or by soils with high organic content.
Now we got a good core, and what you can see...
To the delight of people such as Bob Quinn, our government has come full circle. Rather than encouraging wetland elimination, it will no longer accept it.
And Spokane has a wonderful variety of wetlands, and I hope we can continue to preserve and protect them.
Kim Reamland, News 4. It seems with every new day, our modern world and nature grow a little bit closer. And sometimes they don't mix. In some cases, the damage is easy to spot. In others, we'll never know the delicate details we've lost. We do know half of the wetlands in our state are gone. Many examples of that are hard to see now, but they're right here in Spokane. This hint of wetland vegetation is all that's left of what used to be a 5-block-long pond. Before the worth of wetlands was realized, these South Hill homes were built right over the top of a popular fishing spot and wildlife habitat.
Well, over the years,
even one of Spokane's own city planners still mourns that loss.
We used to ice skate from 29th to practically 34th in the wintertime.
Fred Deharsh has the job of balancing Spokane's wetland preservation with development. New state policy calls on local governments to halt the decline of wetlands. If one is destroyed in the name of development, another must be enhanced or created in its place. Thus, no net loss. Spokane is still in the process of forming laws to protect wetlands. They'll be in place by early winter.
Well, we're trying to both get across to developers and to have our regulations reflect ways for the developer to develop around a wetland versus develop over the top. The extent of the wetland vegetation.
Spokane wants to promote wetlands as assets to developers. What's happening on the other side of the mountain shows that might not be easy. The west side of the state has a moister climate, more wetlands, and more development. The wetlands issue is a hot one. And having a wetland on your property is not always seen as an asset here. In fact, in some cases, it can ruin you.
First off, I think this is reaching to call this a wetland. Well, I don't know what to call it. I mean, I call it a ditch, but
Vern Hodgson has trouble sleeping at night and a constant stomachache. He also has a piece of land he can do nothing with.
Well, when I say wetlands to you, you immediately think of a wet area with water, with bulrushes, with reeds, with ducks and fish and stuff like that.
No ducks and no fish here, just this drainage ditch. But according to the Snohomish County biologist, this is a wetland.
You know, I just don't think this is a wetland here.
Hodgson had all the necessary permits to build on this land before he even bought it. After given the go-ahead, he purchased the property and started building. But one rainy day, a biologist came back and thought the once dry ditch looked more like a stream.
I mean, raining for a week, and water's running down the hillsides, and water's running through here. Obviously, water's going to run. It's got to go downhill. It's running off this guy's lot, too.
Soil tests show that this is indeed a wetland, and therefore, it can't be touched.
There's nothing established. This wasn't even on any maps or...
Based on its interpretation of state policy, Snohomish County is putting its foot down, and Hodgson is being crushed beneath it.
Right now, I'm on the verge of going into bankruptcy. I mean, right now, I'm just basically hanging on by my fingernails trying to, you know, pay the bills. And
County officials say they have little choice but to enforce the state's strict wetland orders. Hodgson wants all counties to come up with a uniform policy and stick with it, and he wishes they'd hurry.
In the meantime, I stand here. At this point, I can't even do any more building because I've maxed out my financing.
It's a project whose time has come.
And not a bit too soon for developers tired of being on hold. C.J. Ebert is a developer turned bank manager, if you will. He's setting up a wetlands bank.
We're going to open this dike right here and allow water to inundate this site.
He's asking the county to approve a plan which would turn a Western Washington strawberry farm into wetlands for sale. For $20,000 an acre, the developer who wants to destroy a wetland can fulfill the no net loss policy by buying a chunk to replace it.
We're actually looking at it from the standpoint of taking lands that have low quality, allowing them to be developed, and trading it for high quality lands.
Ebert says his plan won't work for every situation, but he's hoping the government will give its blessing. If it won't, he says, it had better have a better idea, because holding developers hostage isn't working. Kim Reamland, News 4.
You can create wetlands. It's more than just creating a wetland. We're going to have to change the philosophy of the whole country.
John Hyde is a man committed to doing both.
We've extended the wetlands from just right along the river to out in a larger area.
John has created and cared for wetlands since long before it was fashionable. It's in his blood. His family owns and operates Yamsey Ranch in southern Oregon. His mother, Gerda, keeps the ranch running while her husband, Dayton, is away. Dayton's work to preserve wildlife on private lands keeps him on the road quite a bit. The operation of the ranch is a family affair. Its responsibilities stretch all the way to 5-year-old Joseph Hyde. Wetlands cover half of the 5,000-acre ranch, and of those wetlands, more than half were created by the Hyde family.
I mean, it's been a very important thing in everything we've done through the years is to keep the wetlands and to make more wetlands for the wildlife.
The Hydes claim this ranch has more wildlife than the nearby government-owned refuge, and they say there's a reason for that.
We're land managers, that's what we are. And I think the whole concept of bringing everything into it.
The Hyde family has a philosophy and practice of actively managing the land. Many environmentalists favor hands-off management, letting nature take its course. The Hyde family likes to help it along. To hang on to the land, the Hydes say it has to pay for itself, so they lease parts of the ranch for grazing. Not only does that help pay the bills, it's a tool to keep the land from becoming stagnant.
If they're going to hold on to it, they better take care of it.
Gerda Hyde won't brag about it, but her son will tell you she alone planted 180,000 trees on this ranch.
You know, that's something, you plant trees and you hope that your grandchildren or great-grandchildren will enjoy them.
The family's commitment to the land runs as deep as the springs which feed it. Many of our region's wetlands are on private land. The Hydes believe it is crucial for landowners to nurture them. The problem is, there's little incentive.
You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Ironically, the very wetlands the Hydes have created could eventually cost them the ranch. To protect wetlands, the government could begin to take them over, even if they're on private land.
I mean, we should have a system where the government is pro people making a wetland, for instance. Now, they feel like the government is looking at them and going to control these wetlands.
The Hydes say saving wetlands now is worth the risk of losing them to the government later. You cannot legislate love for the land. The Hydes say while some new laws will protect wetlands, others might simply discourage people from trying to save them.
So it kind of gets you scary. I don't think we'll ever get to the point that we're going to dry up our wetlands just so we're not going to get government influence too bad. But a lot of people told me we need to dry up our wetlands so we don't get the ranch taken away because we have wetlands. So.
Kim Reamland, News 4.
Frog eggs right there.